welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining me in Europe. It's already too late. It was a long day, but I hope you have been enjoying the conference so far. It has been very interesting talk so far. So yeah, this talk is about software development process. If you are here to learn about Java features or the new JDK features, I must tell you this is not about that. So you to know that you are now warned about this. Yeah, and also if you want to ask any questions, just unmute yourself and ask the questions, or write in the chat. But the problem is I cannot see the chat floating here, so perhaps I can answer your question also at the end if you write in the chat. But yeah, just unmute, ask a question, and yes, I hope you have many questions and we can discuss a little bit about it. So a little bit about myself. My name is Carlos Barragan. I am Chief Technologist at Novatech, and I have working in this industry for over more than 20 years professionally, and work with many customers, many different industries. And this talk is actually like kind of a recopilation of many patterns and many things that I have observed over the years and many customers. So I hope this also help you a little bit with your experience and with your development process. And right there is my Twitter handle. If you want also to discuss later on, just add me or send me a message. I'm very happy to discuss about tech stuff and also about the talk. So let's start like this. This is a question I ask many customers or many persons I know, colleagues, and their projects. Like, can you upgrade your current JVM version to the latest? And I mean this on production, and I mean this by now. Like, can you go right now, update your Java version, and deploy to production? I know it. What does that mean exactly? Well, in the ideal world, it would mean like, well, you have hopefully some kind of container, let's say Docker. You update your Docker file, you commit your change to your Docker file. It will your application will be built, and well, somehow it will be deployed on production, and that's it. So this is like the manual process that you have to do. You have to go there, change the file, commit it, but the rest is fully automated, zero human interventions. And it should take like 5 or 8 minutes. So this is what I mean. Like, can you do this, like, let's say tomorrow? Can you go and do this kind of stuff? It is a very simple task, but it is not quite as easy to get it through. I get a lot of answers to these questions. Like many people say, well, we cannot because, well, we just can't, or the architects took the decision, or they should take the decision about which JDK we employ, or we have to discuss with the POs, or production must be stable. Well, if you don't have like a valid technical reason for that, I think what you actually have is an organizational problem. Like, you want to, this is a typical case, or this is a typical example of, this is a change that it has nothing to do with your business logic. So the POs actually shouldn't be involved in this. You and your team should decide when and how to upgrade, and you should be able to do it without any hassle, And if something was wrong, you just roll back. And also another problem that I see a lot is like, well, we have an approval process, like someone from the outside, or a PO or someone else has to approve the process of deploying to production, or our mean time to restore is very high. Like, if something goes wrong, well, it will take you, I don't know, 6 hours a day to fix the problem. So at the end of the day, with these questions, or with the answers to these questions, you have an idea like how technologically capable your organization is. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine this. Oops, sorry. I messed up a little bit. I was here. Yeah. So imagine you have these two axes, performance and capability. And let's say you have a capability level 0, where you have a strict separation of development and operations. You do 4 or 5 releases per year. It takes several months to bring a feature to production. It's really cumbersome, bureaucratic release cycle. It takes weeks to plan a release. A lot of coordination, a lot of this stuff has to take place just to do a release. Then you have another, a little bit a better performance, a little bit more capabilities. Maybe it's not that cumbersome, but you still have this separation of development and operations. Maybe the next level is a little bit better. You have several releases per month. It takes you perhaps some weeks to bring features to production. Now the release plan is a little bit simplified. Developers may release into production, which is actually now quite nice. And the next step will be, well, now you practice really DevOps. You do several releases per week. It takes a couple of weeks to bring features. The developers release into production. So you start seeing, well, the pattern here, it gets better and better until you get to the, let's say, the highest level. Like you really do many releases per day. You use metrics from production. You plan, it takes you days to bring features to production. You use real time for your application usage. And with this data, you take decisions on what to do next, how to plan your next feature. And this is also one favor I want to ask you. Just try to imagine where in this graphic your organization is or your team is. Just like a self-reflective process, just to figure out, okay, where am I here in these capabilities? Where am I? I'm a C2, I'm at a C4. Where is my company, my organization? I'll just think a little bit about it. We will take a look again at this graphic at the end of the presentation. So you start to see here the pattern, and you start to identify, well, actually at the top right, you have like the so-called elite, the performers. And at the bottom left, you see the low performers. Like they have a lot of struggles to deliver features to even the basic things is very, very cumbersome. What I also have observed in these many years is like, well, many organizations think this is their goal or are happy when they reach this state. Like they are not high performance. They are like just in the middle of the graphic, and they think, well, we just made it because we are on the cloud and we deploy more or less frequently. Our cloud migration was successfully. We are done. But this is not the case. This is just the beginning. This is this is the initial setup for the rest of the journey. You see the top right companies, the companies right there. Well, they are incredibly fast. They gain a lot of market share and they continue to add more capabilities, and they are really high performance, really elite performer. Now, these companies right here, they are very fast, but of course, it's very difficult for them to cope with the speed of the top performers. And now we have these companies here. They are stuck there, and this will eventually be out. It means, well, perhaps they won't go bankrupt, but they will just become irrelevant in the market or irrelevant in the industry and the area where they are working. That right now the tech industry is advancing at giant steps. So if you got stuck here in this place, it's very, very difficult to come out of this place. Also, I think I have observed is well, in the bottom left corner, the main challenges are technical challenges there. No? Like you have some applications running on some data centers. You have to migrate those applications to the cloud, or you have to modernize your infrastructure. You have to digitalize some process, or whatever. It's like a very technical challenges there. In the top right corner is more like mindset challenge. You are already there with cloud. You have very good pipelines. You can really deploy continuously to production, but now the mindset is a little bit more difficult. Like your whole organization has to adapt to this kind of velocity now, in your process. Like they have to think a little bit different. Now the problem here is, well, when you are in this place, like you have a lot of technology at your disposal, actually. Like you have to perhaps a cloud, you're on a cloud, public cloud provider where you have really a lot of services at your disposal. But your organization is probably still doing what I call management-driven development, what I mean by that is, like usually the features are driven by the managers. Like the managers come and they tell you when you have to implement this feature. You don't know why, you don't know the background of this. They just had the idea, perhaps by themselves, perhaps they had a meeting, but they propose the idea, they propose the feature, and you have to implement it. And this is what I call management-driven development. It should actually be a user-driven development. Like you take the real data from the user, but this is not the case at this stage. And the other problem I see here is, like, many companies think they are doing some kind of agile. Like, well, they are doing a Scrum, so they must be they are agile, yeah. And it's not a problem with Scrum. I mentioned Scrum because I think is the most popular agile methodology, but it can happen with other methodologies. The problem is many organizations focus a lot on the ceremony of the methodology. Like you are doing Scrum, you are doing stand-ups, you are doing sprint reviews, you have your backlog refinement and all that stuff, which is okay, but this is just the ceremony around it. What Scrum or what Agile is really about is this feedback loop. Like you have very small iterations, and you get a lot of feedbacks very quick. That is what Scrum is about, not a lot about all the ceremony around it. And this is a problem I see also in many organizations. And perhaps you have been asking, said, okay, it will be nice, yes, to develop faster, to deliver faster, to deploy faster and more frequent. But why bother with that? I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. Why should I do it? Why should my organization do this? Well, it is proven, and I really appreciate this book I am quoting here. It is proven that IT performance affect an organization's ability to achieve broader organizational goals. I know it looks a lot of like management talk, and this is perhaps for you to present it to your managers when you want to convince them why. I think we are here developers, and we know the power of speed and the power of continuous delivery, continuous integration. I don't have to, hopefully, to convince you why, but this is just wanted to show you there is also a very, very powerful incentive for management, you know. And when they ask, well, which goals can be improved? Well, I think very interesting goals for any company out there. I like this book. I mentioned it before because now in this book you have the complete proven study about companies that perform at a really high level in the IT department and how they really achieve market share and operating efficiency. So everything that we kind of knew about these kind of benefits is now pretty well documented in this book. So I recommend you to take a look at it. Also, what is also proven is like high performance organizations are consistently twice as likely to exceed their goals as low performers. So this is also a very important aspect, and I think a very interesting aspect for your organization, for your managers, you know, in order to consider, well, we want to develop and deliver more frequently to production. It's not just about bragging and say, oh yes, we deploy, I don't know, 20 times a day. You know, it's not about that. It has an implication. It has a business implication, and this is very well documented. So why do we do then the things we do now? Why haven't we been able to, you know, get to the next level? Why are we like a kind of stuck in this stage where we are now? Well, I think it has a little bit to do with history, like industrial era, where you have like the typical waterfall process, you know, with requirements, implementation, testing, production. And back then, what you spend most of the effort and capacity and these stages, and the first 3 stages, like really months and years went into these stages, and production was just was left to the very, very last. But now we see in the, let's call it post-industrial era, that this is not the right process. The right process is just you shrink the process and you do very small loops, very small iteration loops. And you complete a loop, you get to the other one, you get to the other one, and you take the result from one loop to the next one. You deploy to production, you see if your feature or your bug fix or whatever you change you did, if it works. If it doesn't work, you have to figure out why. And with this input, you go to the next loop. And these loops are really, really fast. In these loops, what it matters here is the speed of the loops. You do this in days or weeks. And at the end of the day, this is not just like, well, yes, we do a sprints and they take two weeks. At the end of the day, what matters is what value are you delivering at the end of the sprint, not just how many stories or how many story points, whoever is still doing story points now. Yeah, so this is the important thing about the feedback loop or feedback-based development, if you want to call it that way. So the important thing is really the measuring the lead time. You have an idea and you want this idea on production. How long does it take? So I have a loosely based example, an example loosely based on a real project. I have to change some things, but most of the things you are going to see are real. So you have an idea, an organization have an idea, or a person have an idea, and they want to deploy to production. What do they do? Well, next step, well, they have a product manager writing a doc. They do meetings. They check with other teams. They don't block because they don't have capacity. They do workshops. They do meetings. They do a lot of, several steps to see if the idea is even worth it. And then somehow they come to the conclusion, yes, it is worth it. Let's do with the idea. We discussed a lot already, so let's get to the next stage. We implement the idea. We have to release coordination. We do the release coordination with teams. Perhaps other teams are not as fast as you, and then you have to delay your release. So you have a very strong coupling to other teams. Your architecture is also very coupled to this other team's release cycle. You have more meetings because the idea perhaps is not yet ready. So you start seeing here a pattern like you have a lot of steps, a lot of coordination and a lot of process here just to test an idea. And at the end of the day, you probably have 2 outcomes. One could be, well, you deployed in production, well, you have a lot of errors or scalability issues, and you don't have metrics of your product usage, so you deploy like blindly on production. Or the other problem that I sadly have seen a lot is you deploy it in production, but nobody uses the product, or nobody uses the feature, or you don't even know if they use the feature. This is also very, very sad because, I mean, you put a lot of effort on that. And you see a lot of these steps, a lot of this coordination, they take a lot of time, months, weeks. I think in the current example which I'm basing this in the current project where I'm basing this example, they are now by, I think, almost a year just by planning. They haven't deployed anything in production. They are still planning. So at the end of the day, planning or coordination are destroying your ability to respond. You think by adding all these steps and the process for checking everything is okay, you think they are giving you security and they are giving you some stability, but at the end of the day, they are just damaging you completely ability to respond, to change, to perform also. So how will this look like? How will this look like with a lead performer edition? You see, a lead performer edition, they have an idea, they discuss the idea, form a small team. They have perhaps some small meetings. Of course, they also have meetings, but just a couple of hours and then perhaps 1 or 2 meetings. They prepare some components, they validate the feature. They don't want just to just deploy because of it. They have to validate it. they implement the features and add metrics to measure the success in production, then deploy in production, and then they tweak the feature according to the metrics. And this takes perhaps weeks, or perhaps days, depending. The trick is, and maybe many of you know this, the trick is, well, the feature is not widely available to all the users. It's just available to a small percentage, also known as A/B testing. And also the feature is not a full-blown service or full-blown feature, it's just an MVP. So why is this important? Because it is important that you get feedback very quick. It is important that you see if your idea is worth it. And the faster you get into production, the faster you test your idea, you can say, oh, it is worth it. Let's invest more time on this. Let's invest more resources on this. And let's grow the idea. Let's grow the product. If it doesn't work, you say at the end, oh, the idea was terrible, or was, well, nobody used the feature, or I don't know, it broke something. It doesn't matter. You just invested, I don't know, 2 weeks, and that's it. No, you didn't invest it a month or a year, just to be at the end and say, oh, it didn't work. We invested like millions of euros in this, and we didn't even try to test it if it was worth it. So this is the important thing about speed. This is important thing about the feedback. Also, I think I want to mention, you saw here on the slide, like I say this, discuss the idea and form a small team. Like form a small team. What does that mean? Like you have people in your organization, and then you want to try this idea, you get these people together and form a team out of nowhere, you know? Usually it's not like that. Usually you have your teams very well structured in your organization. You have departments, you have teams, and you cannot just come and say, I want to form a team with these people, or I need this kind of abilities in my team. No, this is known as the inverse Conway maneuver. And as you probably know, the Conway law says that your software architecture represents your organizational structure. Well, this is the inverse of that, which means that your team or your organization should be evolved to promote your desired architecture. So you have an idea, you have an architecture, you have your software, your product, and you have to build your organizations around it. This is a very, very different approach as the typical industrial era organization. So let's take a small look at an example of an elite performer feature, and a real one. I think many of you know Slack. Slack is this messaging, chatting software. Many organizations use it. I use it. We use it at my company. It's a very nice piece of software, and I think like I don't know, 1 month ago they implemented a new feature called Slack Huddles, which it's just a feature where you go in a channel and you just click one button, or you just slide this headphone button, and then you can start just talking in the channel. You don't need to send a link, you don't need to organize a meeting or send a mail or whatever. You start just talking, and it's like, well, you are right there in the conversation. This is what they wanted to implement. So how did they do that? How did they implement this feature? How did they validate this feature? So they published actually a blog post about it, and this is what I wanted to show you. They say they built a prototype for the first problem in about a week. Now you're starting to see here, you had a prototype in a week for a company like Slack, where they have millions of users. So this is you can start now seeing here the speed of these kind of companies. And they say, yes, they do a pilot. They did a pilot, and they had like 100,000 people testing it. It started very small, of course, but with every kind of release, they were polishing it up. They were hearing stuff from people. They were getting feedback. They were finding the product. And they were doing all this with builds. They were expanding the audience. They were getting more people into the product to use the product. They were getting more feedback. With this feedback, they start to realize, okay, this works nice, this doesn't work nice. We get rid of this, we have to add this, and just very, very quick, adding people, testing, asking for feedback, and they were learning also how the users were using these features, which is very, very important. So at the end of the day, you can measure the product impact with the feedback. This is how they do it. They can say, at the end, they stated, actually, the feature is used. The users are using the feature and they love it, or they like the feature, so it is worth it. So, and then they released that to the world, as I mentioned, like I think a month ago. And yeah, I have tested the feature. It is quite nice. It's very, very straightforward to start a conversation with some colleagues. And nowadays, where almost everybody's working remote, it's a very, very nice feature to have. So I didn't talk here about how they did that with like a process with, I don't know, do they do Agile? Do they do Scrum? Maybe spoiler alert, big tech companies don't do a Scrum. They are Agile by default. They are Agile because they have a lot of autonomy. So you can maybe asking yourself, well, how can my organization be faster? How can I at least get my organization a little bit more closer to this kind of process or this kind of work? Well, you can do several things. I will mention some of the things you can do as an organization or as a developer. Of course, the list is not complete, but as an organization, what you can do well, cross-functional and dynamic teams. You have read a lot about this in many blogs, perhaps, or you have seen it on other talks. Cross-functional teams is very, very important. And what I mean by cross-functional is it is not only, yes, we have a team where we have backends and front-end developers. No, you have people from the business side, you have marketing people there, you have product people there, you have designers, graphic designers, you have really cross-functional teams. And dynamic teams is what I mentioned before. You form these teams according to the feature or to the product you are developing. Another important thing, you share business metric with your engineers. This is very important. If your team, as developers, you have these metrics and you start to say, okay, we implement these features and we are starting to see that the growth of the company or the growth of the sales are improving. This means we are on the right path. And when you start to see, we are losing users, then you can react accordingly. And this transparency is very important for your team, for your development team. Another thing, what I mentioned a little bit before, is also the features should be validated with data from production. You want to deploy as fast as possible to production to validate that the features are working and that the features are being used by your users. And also, I think the next one, developers are problem solvers, not factory workers. This is perhaps the most difficult one to implement. Imagine if you treat your developers, well, we are here all developers, but imagine you are treated like you are problem solvers, like management or business part of your company comes and say, well, we have this problem, we want to solve this problem, we want to implement this feature, we don't know why this is a problem, please solve it. Here are use whatever you want, do whatever you want, you have to solve this problem. And you have access really to the whole company resources. You can autonomously decide on things. You can you have this also communication with other developers, and you started to realize, this problem, well, there was a similar problem that the team X solved last month or a couple of months ago. Maybe we talked to them. Like you start doing this kind of communication with other teams. You start to solve the problems. Perhaps at the end of the day, you don't even have to code anything. You can reuse some software your organization already have there. This is what I saw also with a customer of ours. Like they implemented security for the applications. They had 2 departments implementing security. They implemented the same exact things twice, 2 different departments. It worked exactly the same, but they implemented it twice because, well, they were not able to communicate with other developers, which is also very important. If you have to, in order for you to communicate with other developers, you have to go through the manager, or you have to send an email and do like a whole ceremony just to talk with other developers in other departments. Well, it just slows you down a lot. Another thing is like the developer experience. It is very important that you as developer get the best tools available. And also, and a very high performer organization, what you have there is like there are teams of other developers whose work is to make other developers faster. They are mostly known as platform team or platform people. They solve problems for developers, so they are faster in delivering features and delivering value. So at the end of the day, what all this means is you have to give the developers autonomy. They have to decide. They have to have access to business metrics. They have to be able to communicate freely with any other developers and exchange ideas and exchange solutions. And autonomy also means you just give them a problem and let them solve it. You don't give them a Jira board or a backlog. They give them a problem and let them solve it. Trust your developers. And now, as developers, as we are talking now about a lot of it, what can you do to be faster? Well, there are many trivial things or very easy things to do, like low-hanging fruits, like source code management. Well, you will think, well, it's 2021. Who will use source code management? Believe me, there are still organizations that don't do this. Also very sad, there are many organizations in 2021 that do not even unit tests. It's very sad. I was really thinking about leaving this point, the unit and integration test, because I thought also, well, who doesn't do that? And yesterday I got to get in touch with a customer, and he wanted to, well, that we help them to implement some system. Well, the system is already implemented. They are going live in a couple of weeks. So they gave us access to the source. And big surprise for me was there was not even a unit test. The folder with the test was empty. This was like a big surprise for me. And that's why I left this point here, because, well, it's still happening. Also very important, your infrastructure, your pipeline should be code. You should be able to maintain your infrastructure and pipeline as code, and your pipeline is very, very important. Without pipelines, it doesn't matter that your tests are always green and you develop very fast. Without pipelines, you are nothing. And your pipelines are very important, not only for delivering, but also for rollback. Many people forget this part, the rollback part. Like if you deploy something in production, you see, oh, no, something is going wrong, let's roll back. And this should be something that you have to do in minutes. This is what we did also in a project where we really put a lot of effort on that. So we were able to test a lot of things on production. So this is very important. Also, observability, very important now with microservices that are very popular right now. But observability is also very important to be able to see how your system is behaving, which metrics are important to you, not only the technical ones, like latency, throughput, but also the business metrics. It's also very important to be able to look at them. Another thing that you can do well is trunk-based development, which means don't do feature branch development. Why is that bad? Or the trade-off is, well, with branch development is you have the problem that at the end of when you are ready with your feature, with your in your branch, you have to match everything to the main branch. You have a lot of problems, merge conflicts. Maybe the business already changed that, or a lot of stuff changed in that way. You have this branch which is really, really old, and you are actually slowing you down, and perhaps also slowing your whole team down, because maybe you get to a point where the team can no longer deploy because they have to wait for you. So it's like a chain reaction of a very small thing that you thought, oh, we just do a branch, we implement on this branch, and when it's ready, we deploy it, and it cascaded really, really bad. Trunk-based development is the best. You want to deploy a feature where you say, okay, it's a big feature. How do you do that? Well, you have to slice it in small chunks. You notice perhaps at the beginning, well, for this feature to work, I need to do some refactoring. While you do the refactoring, you deploy. You see everything works. Okay, now the next thing, I have to add this and this and this service in my production environment. You do that, everything works. Next step. So you do this small step, always small step, very small, and this is enabled by trunk-based development. So these are some of the things you can do as developers. These are what I call the low-hanging fruits for you. I mean, as developers, I hope you have the freedom to do this kind of stuff on your projects. If not, as I mentioned before, maybe you have an organizational problem there. But now let's take a look also at another very nice effect of speed, which many people, I don't know, overlooked. Speed is actually an innovation enabler. So if your organization has like a innovation department, or you have like, I don't know, innovation hub or whatever it's called nowadays, you are probably not doing innovation, you are encouraging innovation. It is innovation department, innovation lab, innovation whatever in the big organization. It's just like for C-level people to say, well, we have an innovation department, we are innovative, and that's all. This is not the way you do innovation. This GIF, I like this GIF a lot, but the chip representing the innovation, the freedom, you want to, to be free and implement test a lot of things you have in mind. And this tire and the rope is like the company policies holding you together and say, nope, you're not going anywhere. You're in a big company and you have to perform in these constraints. So what is innovation about then? As I mentioned before, innovation is about experimenting. You want to test if your experiment works. You want to test and fail. This is also very important. You want to see if it fails, and fails is actually a very good thing because you learn a lot when it fails. You learn more when something fails than when it works. So this possibility to experiment is what enables innovation. Maybe you have an idea, to test it really quick in production. It takes you 2-3 days to test something very small. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, maybe you want to test if the new JDK version really improves your latency and your memory consumption. Why not test it and see the results? And you can do that in a day. You should be able to see these results. And this is the kind of thing that many people overlook with the speed, with this feedback. It opens the door to a lot of things, and innovation is one of them. And this should be widely established in the organization, not just in the development team, but this encouragement to test things, to fail, is what make your full company, your process a little bit more innovative than having a department that says we are the innovation department or whatever. So to come a little bit just at the end of the presentation, you have seen, well, speed is a killer feature actually, but you have a lot of things to do to get to this point. You have a lot of bootstrapping to do. You have to, well, think a lot of the stuff I mentioned, like, well, cross-functional teams, feedback metrics, and all this stuff. They have these things have to be in place in order for you to perform at this level. And this is also why it takes many elite organizations were not like that at the beginning. They have to bootstrap everything to provide all the infrastructure, all the conditions for the teams to be fast. So it's not as easy as I go tomorrow at work and I start doing everything faster and that's it. No, it has a lot of more implications. And as I mentioned also at the beginning, I show you now again this graphic. And I want also to reflect a little bit on what you choose when you saw the graphic at the first time. And if you think after what I said now, if you are still in the level where you choose at the beginning, where you choose, okay, I am a level C3, and after seeing this, you still say, oh, yes, I'm still a level C3, or maybe perhaps it has improved. I'm not level C4, or perhaps it got worse. I'm level C2. The numbers are really not relevant, and it's just to give you an idea where you are and the whole picture. It's not like a C4 means something. No, I just put a number just to be able to reference the level. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of how fast you are, how performant you are as a team and as an organization. So with that said, thank you very much for attending my talk. If you have any questions, please ask them. I don't know if in the chat, if I can see the chat, I will just leave the screen and I will see the chat if I see something. About dynamic teams, one code quality, suffer in the long term because you work with a code base only for a short amount of time. As a developer, you will be measured by the new features you implement. There is no benefit in refactoring to ease feature development, which will not be done by you. Well, it is not like you develop something, you deploy in production, and you forget about it. It is not like that. I mean, I did not mean that way. When you form a dynamic team, I mean, you have the ability to do that. And of course, when you deploy a feature and when you go to production and you see the feature is working, well, now it's your responsibility to keep them working, of course. Even if you want to, I don't know, you want to work on another thing, but you have, of course, to take over from other team or from other people. You have to, I mean, you want to, as I mentioned before, you have this autonomy, you have this freedom to decide how you do stuff. And at the end of the day, I think most of us will say, okay, I have to do it well, because if it works in production, I will be in charge of it, or another team will be in charge of it, and I want them to have an easy time taking care of it. So it should be hopefully that way. I know sometimes it doesn't work like that, but that's what I meant. Great meeting will be okay if there are toolchain recommendation that elite toolchain. Oh, well, this is nice. Well, elite teams, what kind of toolchains they use? The sad news is they do their own toolchains. That's why they're elite. I mean, I don't think that Slack, Spotify, Facebook, or Netflix, well, Netflix perhaps a little bit, they would use the normal toolchains you see on the marketplace or on the open source. They create them. This is why you have also open source projects from these big companies. They create these tools, and at the end of the day, they open source these tools. But at the end of the day, it's not a lot about the tools, but how you perform, how you act, work. It doesn't matter. The tools are not like really important. I don't want to be a big focus. Of course, they are important. I mean, you have very bad tools that just break, or you have very bad IDEs or whatever. Of course, you cannot work at a very good speed. But at the end of the day, they are tools. I think it's more important to think about how to work faster, how to cut this feedback, this lead time from idea to production. That is the most important part, more important than the tools. Are there any other questions in the chat, or you can also unmute? Do you have any recommendation for further lecture books to learn more about CI/CD? Well, there are some books. I have some sources here. When I will, when I give the presentation to the conference moderators, they are going to publish them. I will add some books. I didn't add them here, just some links. But at the end of the day, about CI and CD, what you have to think about, what I just mentioned a little bit before, is this ability that you have these pipelines that work for you, that take a lot of the heavy lifting, automate a lot of stuff, and as I mentioned also before, the ability to roll back a change is also very, very important. There are many tools now. There's now a very good time for doing this kind of stuff. There are a lot of tools about doing CI and CD, and also a lot of techniques, perhaps. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's just take the path that automate a lot and that gives you more speed. But I will add some books here, and also some very good blog posts about that. So on the chat. Well, if there are no further questions, then thank you again very much for attending my talk. And if you have a question later on, send me a tweet, an email, just contact me. We can discuss about it. I will be very glad. Thank you a lot for attending my talk, and have a nice evening or day, depending where you are. Thank you.